All right, and welcome to episode 10 of the Rainier Strength Pod. I am here with legendary strength coach Bill Gillespie. Bill has a career in powerlifting that spanned from 1981 all the way until 2022. His last meet, he posted an 11:28 unlimited bench at 62 years old. Something that I have never heard of before. Absolutely incredible, not to be done with a multi-ply bench of 750 as well and a single ply of 755. Bill has had an illustrious career. I'm honored to be joined by him today. Bill, how are you doing this morning?
I'm doing wonderful. A lot smaller than I used to be, but but I'm doing wonderful.
I mean, you still look great. I've seen the pictures. You look real healthy, especially on Instagram. Tell me a little bit about this last meet you did, because posting a 1,000 pound bench is a huge milestone. It's a huge barrier, no matter who you are, no matter what you're wearing. And you did it at 62 years old, which is just incredible. There's no words. Tell me a little bit about what led up to that meet and how that went.
Well, first of all, I remember we did a podcast with the 10 greatest equipped bench pressers in the world. And Scott Mendelson asked me the same question, like, how in the world at 62 do you bench so much weight? And I says, well, you can't get confused with my chronological age and my training age. I said, I've never had an injury, ever. I never had an injury. And I said, Louis used to say to me, he said, if you poke an old man with a needle, he'll jump just as fast as a young man. And, it's all about the nervous system. So it's so important to these people who uh, over strive, over trying to overreach. And that's what leads to injuries. Yes, we all want it. We all want it bad. But you have to evaluate, is this going to get me injured and set me back? Because that's what sets you back so much. But yeah, that last meet, going into it, I told my wife, I said, this is going to be it. I said, I have to retire. I said, I can't continue to do this. Uh, I said, it was just too difficult. I was having trouble finding spotters. I was driving 6 hours every Sunday to get a spotter and do a workout. And that was my whole day, 3 hours there, 3 hours back. And then it was that night, and I'm just like, I can't continue to do this. And place of 62, I just knew there wasn't a lot of tread left on the tire. I said, this has to be it. I either do it in this meet or I walk away. Well, I'll tell you what, warming up, I didn't feel all that good. I hadn't had a good workout in a shirt in a long time. I knew that my base strength, my raw strength for the bench, which I got to make sure people understand. People go and say, well, how much you bench raw? And they just assume because they can bench X amount of weight that they put the shirt on and they're going to bench X amount more. And it's just not true at all. It's how you bench your raw benches that allow you to lift more in the shirt. It's not just how much you bench raw. You have to do it specific towards the shirt. But anyway, um, I knew my raw strength was good and I knew I was ready, but I just had to put it together. And I had missed that world record 20 times in a row in the meet. Yeah. And everybody told me to quit. Everybody told me, you're wasting your time. Just stop. Just go move on with your life. You're old. It ain't going to happen. You're risking, you're taking, and I knew. I said, no, I'm not done. I'm not done. I got to finish. And I mean, I felt like I was standing by myself because everybody told me to quit. Doctors, everybody. And I missed the first attempt really bad. Hey, before I, I, I got to the meet, I was driving down there and in North Carolina, because it's January, it's cold, and it's just about dark. And I look up in front of me, and somebody had lost aluminum ladder on the highway. I'm going 80 miles an hour. I hit that thing, and I'm like, oh my gosh, what's going to happen? It ended up I only blew out my front tire, but I had 700 pounds of weights in the back. I had to get that thing off the road and try to jack it up. Well, I couldn't get the jack in the right place. Well, I couldn't get the jack out, first of all. Then I couldn't get the spare out. It ended up taking me 3.5 hours to change the tire. And what was funny was I got my tires from Sam's, a little plug for Sam's here. And went it back, and they said, oh, sir, your tire's so new, we're going to give you a brand new one. And he goes, you did call for roadside assistance, didn't you? And I said, what are you talking about? And he goes, sure, sir, anytime you buy tires from us, you get free roadside assistance. He says, we're known for getting you back on the road in 45 minutes. I said, I could have sure used that knowledge last week. But uh, I was exhausted. I mean, when I changed that tire, my forearms were so tired. I was so cold. I sat there and I thought, there's no way I can even hold that weight in my hand. It was everything in the world to say I couldn't do it was there. Okay. And but I go to the meet, and the first attempt I get a cramp in the right hamstring, and as soon as you get a cramp in the right hamstring, the bar drifts to the left. When that kind of weight drifts to the left, you don't pull it back. Okay, it's done. It's over. That attempt is done. And grab it. I told the spotters, grab it. And I had great spotters, So, and they thought maybe they did something wrong. I said, no, 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 no. It was me. It was on me. So then the second attempt, I brought the bar down, and my chest caved in, which is, if there's a tip I can tell you about the bench shirt, is keep your chest up. Do not go and get too tight of a chest panel, because that's the whole key. Is how far can you keep that chest up and hold it against the shirt. But so I caved my chest in. I brought the bar down. I thought I was like 4 inches from touching, and I just yelled, grab it. I'm like, this is stupid. And someone said, you're only about 3/4 of an inch from touching. I went, what? And I had my chest caved in. I thought, I could have touched that thing. So I sat there, and I was pretty discouraged. I knew this was it. A lot of people just went, they were telling my spotters, do you think Bill even cares about this meet? He's just so casual. I'm like, man, yeah, I care. Trust me, I care. 50 years of hard work. I care. I always care. And I went, and I sat down, and to be honest with you, I prayed. And I didn't ask God for a miracle. I didn't ask God to do something miraculous in my life, because I was kind of selfish. I sat there and I thought to myself, I said, well, what is it I need to say right now? And I need to say thank you. I mean, think about it. Here I am, 62. Even if I didn't set the all-time world record, I never saw myself as that guy. Okay, that's Ryan Kennelly. That's Scott Mendelson, Tiny Meeker, Jimmy Cobb. Those guys are built for it, and they're just freaky strong. And I never thought of myself as at the same level. I was like just underneath them, but never that good. And I thought to myself at the time, I said, even if I don't set the world record right now, I'm okay. I said, God, I hope you're okay with it, because God, I gave you all I got. There's nothing left. And there's nothing left. And I tried my best. But I said, right now, if there's any tips you got for me, you better speak now, because this is it. And almost immediately, I felt like God said, move your hands out an eighth of an inch. And I went, that's a great idea. Now, I know that doesn't sound significant, but in the bench shirt, it's huge, okay? So I changed my grip an eighth of an inch. And I thought for sure when they handed me that weight, I thought, man, this is going to feel light. I said, this is going to feel good. The adrenaline. You always say as a kid, if I get that one chance to set a world record, I'll dig down so deep and I'll just give everything I got.
Yep.
It don't work that way, okay? It don't work. They handed me that weight, and I went, oh my gosh, it felt like a ton. I'm like, so much for adrenaline. Oh my gosh, it was so heavy, I couldn't believe it. And I thought, there's no way. But when I brought the bar down, I tried to bring the bar down slightly faster, which is nearly impossible to do. But and when I got it down, I felt it touch, and the judge purposely held me just a hair longer, because he knew the kind of ridicule we'd all get if he called press too soon. And he yells out, press. And when he did, that bar just floated up there. I mean, it was so perfect. I've had 2 benches in my life in competition that just caught me off guard, and that was one of them. It was amazing. It felt phenomenal. And at the top, I normally have trouble holding at the top. No, I was like, I'll hold it forever. You just and they purposely. He told me, he says, I held you long because I didn't want to hear any criticism. And you know what? It was the most perfect bench I've ever done. People sit there and tell me, that was easy. You should come back and you could do more. And I'm like, I'm 62, okay? It took everything. I'm not gifted, okay? I'm not that guy. I'm not like those other guys, okay? I'm not gifted. My bench sucks, basically. And it wasn't until I found the research to study it and to train for it that allowed me to be so successful. And that's it. I mean, I bench out of college. I went to the first drug-free nationals and benched 341 pounds. All right, not kilos, pounds. And I was the worst bench presser on the Sunday afternoon session by 35 pounds. I mean, I was horrible. And so I never thought of myself as being a bench presser. So one thing made it really easy is that when I did set the world record, it was people have told me that, I bet it's hard to be humble when you have the world record. And I went, yeah, it is, because I know that I'm really not that talented, So, was it hard for me to lose the world record? Not at all. Not at all. I knew it was going to get broken. I told Jimmy before I broke it, I said, Jimmy, I said, I'm going to tell you what I'm going to do. I said, I'm going to break your world record. And he kind of gave me this look, and I took him and his wife out for lunch, and then spent the day with him. And I said, no, 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 no. I said, I need you to do me a favor, though. I said, after I break the world record, I need you to come back and I need you to annihilate it, just destroy it. And he goes, what? What? And I went, yeah. I said, so I can tell everybody, yeah, that's how much weight it took to break my world record.
Yeah.
And he did. Yeah. But, yeah, Jimmy's a freak, man. First time I ever met him, I went, oh my gosh, this is, and you had, Duncan on there on show, and he's the same thing. First time I ever met him, I went, "Oh my gosh!" I mean, this kid's in high school wearing knee wraps, no suit, a belt. I squatted 800 in competition, like it was nothing, and I went, "Oh my gosh! I can't wait to work with this kid, man. He's amazing." And he's been amazing. Just heart of gold. Love that kid. I love him to death, man. And I'm glad to see he's gotten a full-time coaching job now, and he's doing really well. But yeah, that's my first meet. And when I set the world record, everybody's crying and jumping up and down. You just set the world record. My first response was, oh, no, 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 no. It's about the 50-year journey. It's not about the record. But you know what? That was precious to me because I knew, one, the world record is going to get taken away from me. No, so somebody's going to break it. And Jimmy did 7 weeks later.
Yep.
But nobody was going to take away the process of what I went through for 50 years to get to that. Because let me tell you what, there were way, 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 way more failures than there were successes. I mean, like I said, there were 20 failures before I was successful at that one attempt. And most people today, I work with a lot of college athletes who inhibit themselves because they're so afraid to fail. They think that if they fail, they failed. That's not failing. All right. Yeah, you might get beat because you failed, but you're out there trying, trying to find a way to be successful. And that's what makes you a better man. It's not the weight. It's not the records. Okay. That's nice. We get confused because we all want to see that record, but it's that process that changes you. Like this, I told my athletes, and I got this from my volleyball coach at the University of Washington, who was the men's Olympic volleyball coach in '84, Bill Neville. And he said to me, he said, coach, he goes, 300 pounds don't ever change. 300 pounds is 300 pounds today, it's 300 pounds tomorrow. And if it kicks your butt today, you go home and you look yourself in the mirror, you can't make no excuse. Oh, that 300 pounds got lucky today. oh, it had a good day. No, it's the same every day. The inconsistent variable, you. And you have to learn how to compete. And that's what I would want my athletes to learn how to compete. And when I was at the University of Washington, we won like 28 games in 3 years, and 23 of them were fourth quarter come from behind wins. And everybody's like, "Man, your team's the best conditioned team in the fourth quarter." And I was like, "Nah, I appreciate that, but that's not the truth. The truth is all teams are pretty well conditioned. Okay, there are teams that are better conditioned than others, but it's not the team that's the best conditioned team. It's the team that knows how to compete the best that wins in the fourth quarter. Teach your players how to compete. And you do that in the weight room that 9 months, 8 months out of the year when they come in. And the players hate it. They don't want to be accountable. They don't want to be told, oh, you have to hit this weight or else. Oh, I don't want to. They don't like, especially the very talented ones. They don't want to. But they have to learn how to compete because within us is the ability to do something so much more. And we get, there's very, very, very talented athletes get confused between um, the residual side effects that we gain from lifting heavy weights. All they see is that they get muscle, they get strong, but they confuse their talent and the tool. Okay, and you can't get the two confused. You can have a really, really, really nice knife, but if it's dull, it's not a good knife. You can take a cheap knife and get just as much work done with it as you can a really nice knife. But you got to learn to keep that thing sharp. And when you do, it's a handy tool to have. That's why some people will say, "Oh, you don't need to be strong to play football." I'm like, "Oh, then we should recruit over 50% of the population because women, hey, they're not that strong and they're easy to coach and they're fun to work with because they do exactly what you want them to do." But you know, you do have to be strong to play football. It's a violent game.
Yeah,
So
absolutely.
anyway,
And you had mentioned being injury free, which I think is a really good topic because a lot of people deal with a lot of nagging injuries that force them out of the sport early. But longevity is something that a lot of people, including myself, are now focusing on. What do you attribute to your lengthy powerlifting career?
well, first and foremost, I would have to say that we were competing during an era when everybody had to use a bench shirt. Okay, in the mid '80s, the bench shirt was introduced, and by the '90s, it was either you wore a bench shirt or you got beat, because you had to go raw, and at that time, we were getting into the denim shirts and putting up some pretty big numbers, and there were some guys that just couldn't do it, especially the poly shirts, and then this whole thing changed with uh, uh, as soon as we could go raw, now guys can lift raw. I'm forgetting what I was even going to here, but what were we talking about? Make sure, help me out here.
Yeah,
We
injury
were
free, and how the
Oh,
heck you stayed
injury
injury
free.
free for so long.
Yeah. Well, yeah. And Scott Mendelson said that the reason why so many of us stayed injury free was because we had to compete in the bench shirt. The bench shirt keeps you injury free. Lifting heavy raw, a lot of times that's what leads to the pec injuries and all that. Uh, what I did is I did velocity based training for most of my career without even knowing there was such a thing as velocity based training. But the reason for it is this, and it's hard sell people because they all want to go to the limit. Okay, first and foremost, I will tell you, bodybuilding is like the biggest nemesis of big benches. Okay, uh, we all want to look good, but the fact of the matter is, you're confusing that motor pattern on how to contract. Right? So you have to teach it to contract correctly. And you could do the wrong tricep exercises and teach it how to contract ineffectively when you quit doing them and you start doing some of the other exercises that will affect the nervous system more properly. Boom, your bench goes way up, way up. And I had 20 guys and women that were ranked in the top 20 all time in the world in their division in the bench press when I finished coaching, quit competing. But what I would do is this. All right, if I was trying to develop speed, because I used to be a track coach, so college track coach at Liberty, so I have a little background in speed training. But if I wanted to develop speed, I would have my guys run really, really fast up to 60 yards. And then after 60 yards, they start to decelerate. All right. I don't need them practicing running slow. I want to practice running fast. I want them working on acceleration, starting strength, and top speed. All right. For me to do that, yeah, it burned. I could go and say, we're going to run repeat 400s. All right. I mean, I can make them puke. It'll burn like crazy. But is it going to make them faster? No. I'll make them better at the 400, which is an honorable race, but not football players, okay? What I do is I run them till they start to decelerate, okay? And everybody understands that, and it makes sense. But when we go in the weight room, all of a sudden, it doesn't make sense. And we go and we got the bar accelerating. We can measure that now. And when the bar starts decelerating, it's going slower, the training effect of the set is based off the last rep. Like if you do a set of 6 or 5, whatever, well, the first 4 reps aren't the training effect. It's that last 1 or 2 reps that's the training effect. And we have a habit of really slowing down, particularly on that last rep. I don't know why we do it. We always do. What I did was if I could do a set of weight for 8 to 12 times or whatever, I would only do it 5. And people go, you could do a lot more. And I said, yes, I know I can. But then I start to practice moving the bar slow. Now, this system works wonderful until you find out you can't lock out the weights. Okay. And if anytime somebody tries to tell you they really understand some method of training, have them explain to you what the weak components of that training system is. Then they really know it. And that's what velocity-based training. You got to know that you're going to have problems with the lockout. So what you do, is what do we, us experienced smart lifters, we're going to put boards on our chest, pins on the, rack. We'll do partial motions, and that's going to help that lockout problem. But that's not what caused the problem. What caused the problem was when you bring the bar down with a submaximal weight, all right, a weight that you could do 10 times, but you're only going to do it 6 times. You've got, in most cases, so much speed generated off the chest that you're not working the lockout. That's why you don't get very much training. So it's not necessarily you have to work the lockout. What you have to do is you have to train your body for a precursor of fatigue before it goes to lockout. So bring the bar down, let that sucker sit there for a hair, just barely touching. We use fettuccine. We'll put a piece of fettuccine on your chest and bring it down and just hold that thing there without breaking that fettuccine. All right? Hold it there 5 seconds. Then push the weight up and watch how much weaker you are. but that's going to attack the strength that needs to be developed that maybe you're not getting in a velocity based training system. Anyway, that's what I did for so many years, and I never really there were times I overreached and I shouldn't have, and I paid for it, but I never ended up with a major injury because of it. And so that's why I'm a person who is very, very motivated, very driven, and in fact, I embrace suffering. Okay. I've lost a lot of weight here in the last few weeks, months and stuff. And people are like, well, what's your secret? I said, I suffer. And they're like, that's so bad for you. No, it's not. No, it's not. It's good for us. It's good for us. We're not supposed to live in the lap of luxury and comfort. It's all about us, our personal growth. And I know this, okay? I know this. I use this big Bible story, but anyway, I'm not going to spend a whole lot of time on it. But it basically comes down to the fact that men have to work. Okay, we don't like to. All right, women work, but us guys, I don't know what it is. We like to play collect things, and we got our hobbies, you know what I mean?
Yep.
We're really bad about it, you know? But then what happens is there's guys, the same group of guys, they don't know what work is. They don't want to work. And they go, boy, I sure hope I do blah 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 blah. And I'm like, no, 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 no. Don't use that word hope, okay? You say, I wish, because that's all you got is a wish. If you're not willing to work, there is no hope, okay? Hope comes from hard work. You have to earn hope. And hard work, there's nothing wrong with it. It's good for us, all right? It builds character. And when you can do it and make it yourself, do it yourself, holy smokes, it makes you that much better of a person. And people want to be around you. People want to, they're all trying to find it, And we can influence people to be motivated, but we can't actually motivate people. But if I can go and show this type of an example, all right, and I'm living it, then I can help be that person to help bridge that them getting in that first step. Now, of course, they're going to have to learn to walk on their own, but still, it helps. But yeah, I'm a big fan of when I was in high school. I lost a wrestling match my junior year. I shouldn't have lost. And this is in the '70s, so I gotta I gotta say it because I'm old, and you're gonna. But we were at a dance, and back then it was disco, okay? So I had the platform shoes on, the disco pants, all that, yeah, the whole works. Worked all summer, saved my money so I could look good at one day. So I'm standing there at this dance, and I'm mad as can be at myself because I lost. I should never have lost. And I said, you lost that match because you were afraid. You were afraid to work hard. And I said, I will never be afraid to work hard ever again. And I walked out of that dance, and I went and started running. Now, I don't like to run, but I did. I ran. And every time the shoes were wrong, everything was wrong, now you could hear kids today, oh, you're not supposed to do, I don't care, okay? I had to get this done, and I started hurting. And when it hurt, I just told myself, no, I'm not going to ever be afraid of pain ever again. And I realized that, especially after coaching for so many years, there's so many guys out there. There's so much more talent, and you young guys, especially probably high school, junior high, you might think, oh, I'm nobody. I can't be great. There's so and so. He's so much more talented than I am. And I'm gonna tell you straight out, you can overcome talent, okay? And you can supersede it. It's being in there, developing the discipline to do the things that you got to do when nobody else wants to do it, and do it with passion, not just grudgingly. Oh, I'm here, I'm doing my workout. No, you're doing it with passion and enthusiasm, finding a way to get it done in a way that's going to make you better. Then you're going to separate yourself. You're going to separate yourself, and you're going to separate yourself on the athletic field. You're going to separate yourself in life, because life is all about struggles. I told my college football players, you think this is the hardest thing you ever been through? I said, you just wait. You wait. You're going to wish this is what you could go through compared, and a sad story, but I had one of the guys that every year, I'm going to just tell you straightforward, this kid shouldn't have started, okay? And for some reason, he started his freshman year. And every year I went, well, he's not going to start this year. We're going to have to find someone else. And he found a way to start every year. And I'd get up, and I finally realized, okay, this guy's going to play for us. I better get him really ready, And I would get up in his face and just challenge him. I'd be like, I'd be straight up for him. You don't belong here. You should not be playing at this level. You should not be starting. And if we were any good, you wouldn't. And I said, but you're going to play for us. And I said, you either quit now and give a scholarship to somebody that we can play, or you start working harder. And I said, I'm not going to accept any excuses from you. And I just get up in his face and go, I don't care if a rabbit can climb the tree. Rabbit's going to have to climb that tree, and you're going to have to make it happen. Well, about a year and a half ago, I'm at the World's Strongest Man competition with Tom Evans. He was competing in it, and I got to be there with him and help him out. But right then, I got a text message, and it said that this guy that I was up in his face all the time, he had 3 little boys, and his wife was giving birth to 2 more little boys, and she had some complication and died. And the babies lived, and so now he's a father of 5 boys. And I'm like, oh, I was heartbroken. I was so heartbroken. Tears run down my eyes. And for about 2-3 weeks, I just kept praying for him. I didn't want to bother him. And one night, my son calls me and says, "Hey, Kevin, this guy would like to talk to you." I'm like, "Well, I'd love to talk to him." He goes, "Do you mind if I give him your number?" No, please. And immediately he called me. He said, "Coach, I've been needing to talk to you since this happened." He goes, "You know about it?" I said, "Yeah." And he goes, "Coach, I'm going to tell you honestly, I'm not going to go in a lot of detail, but every day I get up, I can't make it. I can't make it." And he says, "And all I do is keep telling myself the same thing. You jumped in my face. You think this is the hardest day you ever been through? It's not. There's going to be things in life a lot harder than this. And you better learn to be successful today in this, or you're not going to be successful when your kids need you as a man and a husband, as a father." I said, "You're going to have to rise up." And he goes, "Coach, that's exactly what I tell myself." He says, "These boys have to have a dad. They have to have someone to raise up. And I don't have a choice. I have to win. I have to get up and win today." And that's real life. Not this ain't the football field. This ain't weightlifting. This is real life. And I can tell you other stories. The guys who in Afghanistan fighting, and they're on their deathbed fighting for their life, and they told the doctor that they're like towards their last breath, "Hey, I made it through Coach Bill's workout. I'm gonna make it through this." And they went, "What? This guy's talking crazy?" And they told me, they said, "No, Coach, I swear, I knew I could make it because what you took me through was horrible." So, but you know what? That's what life is about. That's what, and I can't do that to my players if I'm not willing to know what it is to go through that. I have to know what it's like to suffer, and I have to lead the way. Not necessarily. I don't believe in as a strength coach working out with my players, but they know who I am. They know who I am behind the scene. They see what's going on, and I think it's really important that we have that, because you know, we spend, there was a long time ago, and things are progressing in the right direction as far as strength coaches are concerned. But years ago, they did an article that said the 2 most influential coaches on a football staff is the head coach and the strength coach. Because we're the 2 things. One, we're the only 2 coaches that work with the whole team, and we work with the team year round. So we have, especially strength coaches, we have all this time with them, one-on-one with them. And you strength coaches and football coaches, too many times we want to hire these tech guys, okay, or rah guys. All right, what they need to be looking for is coaches of character, men of character. Not necessarily men; it could be women. I'm all for women strength coaches. There's some great ones out there. Meg Ritchie was phenomenal. She was a great friend of mine, and man, I have the greatest amount of admiration for her. I would have loved to have her as my strength coach, but we need men of character. We need people who are, when your team is in the 4th quarter and their backs against the wall. All right, you don't need some rah because all that is this empty sound. What you need is that time during the off season when nobody else is around, when that June and July time, when, oh my gosh, it's so lonely, it's just hot, nasty weather, and you're pushing those kids, and those kids are eating it up, and you're trying to create this environment of competition and enthusiasm and passion, trying to elevate their levels of ability to compete. And then you step out there and watch them compete. It's a great feeling. It's a great feeling. But you better know what it is to do it yourself. And when you get that guy, your football player is going to win more times when their backs are against the wall. And they're going to suffer. Every team is going to suffer some kind of setback. I mean, every team that I've seen, like when I was at Washington, we were national champions, and we had a freshman die of cancer that first year. Oh my gosh, it bonded the players. Players didn't know him all that well, but it bonded them all together, gave them a real reason to play. We went to we went to 2000. We went to the that season at Washington. We went to the Rose Bowl. We played Drew Brees with Purdue, and that year we won. Oh gosh, I forget 8 or 9 games, 8 out of 11 games in the fourth quarter, come from behind wins, and the players that's how they were. I mean, we played Michigan. All right, now, if I remember right, we were down by 13 with a minute and a half to go, and the players were just calm as can be. And I remember one of them turning to me, telling me, "Oh, coach, someone's going to win this game for us. We don't know who, but one of us, one of us is going to step up." And you know what? We did it so often that it became, oh, yeah, okay. And you know what? We did. We came back. We won that game. And it was a great feeling to be a part of. Now, when I ran up against another great strength coach like a Mad Dog at Texas when he was down there, yeah, I wasn't so fortunate. That man, he knows how to condition a football team. He did a great job at Texas when he was there, and so I know I could tell when I ran up against another great strength coach. So, but yeah, it's an incredible field that we get to work in and help train these kids and change them, be innovative, and come up with new ideas. It's hard with some football coaches because they like to do it old school. One football coach told me, he said, the biggest problem you're ever going to face is that every football coach on every football staff has lifted weights at some point in time or another. And they all think they have some idea of how it should be done. So he says you got to constantly fight with them about it. What I did is I would go the first game week, okay? New staff. Staff meet's about over, and I raise my hand. Coaches, hey, if I could have your attention for just a minute. I got this pet peeve of mine, okay? Yeah, I know. I play college football. All my staff played college football. Even some got some sniffs in the NFL. And they were good. They were good football players. But they're not football coaches. All right? They don't know what your game plan is. They don't know what your substitution plan is. And if I ever hear any of them complaining or saying something critical, I want to know about it. I'll put it into it. Man, them coaches, yeah, yeah, yeah. Then I hit them between the eyes. It'd be like, you guys, yeah. I know you lifted weights. Yeah, you know a little bit about lifting weights, but you don't know what I know. You don't know what my agenda is. You don't know what my plan is. And you would never, ever undermine me in the weight room. He got quiet, but I got my point. It made sense to them, and they quickly realized, hey, wait a minute, things got to change. So, you know, yeah, but yeah, I think that it's an incredible job and it's an incredible opportunity, and I loved it. But you're not going to get rich. Uh, you're not going to have any kind of job stability whatsoever. I don't care how good you are. Okay. Benny Wiley was at SC. Was at Oklahoma before that, Texas before that. He's top tier strength coach. Great guy. I went out to visit with him at USC, just spending the day with him, trying to, him and I never really got to spend a day together, and we were just having a ball. And he said, I'm like, everything's going great. The next week, they announced he's been fired. I was shocked. I couldn't believe it. I'm like, Benny Wiley got fired? So I don't care who you think you are. You might think you're the greatest thing, and there are about 2 or 3 of you that have that kind of job security, and partly it's because you got lucky and you got hooked up with a great coach that loves you.
Yeah.
So, but there are some really, really great strength coaches. Rusty Whip at Tulane, man, that guy is one of my best friends. I mean, I love that guy. I mean, he's an ex-Ranger, tough as nails. Uh, uh, I took him hog hunting. I got so many funny stories to tell you, but anyway, about him. Anyway, I took him hog hunting, and I said, these things might attack you. You got to be a little careful about it. And he goes, oh yeah. He goes, not quite like hunting humans, but I'm like, but he's tough. Oh, he's so kind, so generous, and hardworking. And his players, I mean, they're benefiting. Every time he's worked, his team does really, really well. Now, again, you're not necessarily evaluating a strength coach because they're national champions every year. That there's if you're going to be national champions year after year, there's something else you're doing besides just strength and conditioning, because it's just too many teams out there. But there are teams out there that do good year after year after year after year, and a lot of it's because of their strength coach. They
Yeah,
carry a lot of the weight, and unfortunately, they don't always get recognized or subsidized the way they should. But they're starting to,
yeah,
they're starting to recognize and make because the strength coach is the only one of the strength coaches that work with the whole team, him and the head coach. Some coaches are making the strength coach assistant head coach and paying them a lot of money. And, and I think that's incredible. I think it's a role that we should embrace. I think that when you start looking at all the facets of preparation and eating, flexibility, conditioning, oh yeah, what about strength training? All of that, all right, injury prevention, all of that. It makes a strength coach extremely valuable. So uh, yeah, yeah. My buddy, uh, 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 Jesse Ackerman, who's now assistant at Florida, I consider him one of the best strength coaches out there. Again, just tough as nails. All right. And when he was at Atlanta Falcons, uh, I went down to visit him, and he said, Coach, he says, I only average about one soft tissue tweak a year. I said, what, in the weight room? What? He goes, no, everywhere. I said, hip flexors, growing, hamstrings. He goes, yep. He said, last year we had one guy who had a tweak in his hamstring at the end of practice, and so we had to pull him out. But next day he went back to practice. So we don't know if it was a tweak or anything was wrong with it at all. He goes, but that's it. And I says, all right. So what's your secret injury prevention exercise? He says, Coach, we don't use that word around here. I said, what word's that? He goes, injury prevention. He says, as soon as you start educating them about injury prevention, they understand how to get hurt. And I went, oh my gosh, that's true. We talk to our kids about, concussions and all this. And I remember my mentor leaning over to me going, you think can they tell the difference between two-a-days in August in the heat and going and wearing a helmet after not wearing a helmet for 8 months? He says, I think I had a concussion every day. He goes, he goes, in fact, I think I got a concussion right now just from sitting out here in this heat. I'm like, yeah. But Jesse was right. He says don't educate him about being injured. And he says he did two other things that I thought was really cool. One was they did some type of hamstring activation exercise after a meeting. And then the next thing they did was he monitored everything they did on the field, on off the field. So if a new guy came in, he was monitoring their reps and pulled them off of practice before they create a fatigue, because that's what it's all about. It's all about work capacity. We have to. I talk about this all the time. But what you want to do as a strength and conditioning coach for football is you want to zero in on the energy systems that are going to be needed for the game. And then you want to do is just pound it all the time, over and over and over and over, and raise that work capacity. That's all it is. And people go, like it's like a great story. Okay, I go to Europe to compete in the IPF bench press championships, and when you fly in, you hang around usually like 2 hours waiting on a bus with all the other competitors throughout the world so they can take you to the venue. Well, you're sitting there on that bus for quite a while, and you get an opportunity to talk to, nothing but world-class bench pressers. And they knew who I was. They knew I was an old man and all that, I coached and all this stuff. And they said, so coach, how often do you go heavy? And I press 3 times a week. And they said, wow. They said, how long you been doing that? And I said, this for a long time. And they looked at me and they smiled and they said, so how long's your bench been stuck? And I went, oh my gosh, how'd you know that? And what they explained to me was this, and this is, it's complicated to do it, but it makes sense. People try to tell me I can only bench 1 time a week, 2 times a week. And I'm like, no, that's not true, okay? It's all about developing the work capacity, because your body can only handle X amount of work per workout, okay? And then if you can't, if you get to where you can crush that, you don't want to go longer, okay? You just have to add another workout in. Now, when you add in, if you're going 2 days a week and you go to 3 days a week, you have to look at the total volume, and this is where all my calculations and I could dazzle you with my numbers. But anyway, this is where you take those 3 days a week and you add up you add up your tonnage from, let's say you're going 2 days a week. All right, you add up your total tonnage and you're going to go slightly more than that 3 times a week. Okay, so your other 2 days are going to drop in volume. They're going to be even shorter than what they were, but you're going to add a third day, and that's what's going to allow you to add that third day. And that third day is going to be a very light day, something like 6 sets of 2. But then you could just add a rep every week, and your body will adjust to it. And it's a pretty amazing how that works. But I remember working construction in college. I was a hod carrier carrying bricks out there in University Place, out there in Lakewood, and when I was growing up. But I, in fact, remind me of the hod carrying story. I grew up. You know the gym there in Spanaway? I grew up literally half a mile from there. Yeah. So
That's awesome.
anyway, I was a hod carrier, and the first day I came home from work, I was so tired. My mom's like, hey, I got dinner for you. I don't want to eat, And she goes, well, you need to take a shower. I'm like, oh my gosh, all I want to do is go to bed. And, they got this old man who shows up to work, and he'd been drinking all night, and he hung over, and he's kicking my butt. And I'm supposed to be this young guy out of high school, fit, going to college. I'm going to go to college and play college football. I can't even carry bricks, man. And what happened then is that 3 weeks later, I was fine. It was nothing. It was a piece of cake. You couldn't slow me down. All right. And I remembered that when I got into the lifting weights, and I realized that my body would adapt about every 3 weeks. All right. And then I gotta carefully. This is where you have to be careful, because what so many people do, they want to change up the routine, and so many times I think they change it up too quickly, or they make too big of changes. I think the changes only need to be subtle. And if you're having great success, keep that ball rolling, roll it along. I've done. When the first time I started doing 5x5, my bench had gotten bad, and I think I dropped my raw bench was like 462, something like that. It was bad, like 100 pounds down. And I just thought it was old age and stuff like that. And I had recently tried this bench just for kicks to see if I could do it. I benched 40 days in a row, all right, 2 to 3 times a day, and I went max effort almost every day. And I got through with it, didn't get any stronger, but I wanted to learn. I want to see if it worked. Sometimes you got to go outside the box to try it, but it didn't work. So I went to 5x5, and I started with a stupid lightweight. I don't remember, something low hundreds. I just did 5x5, and I would go up 2.5 pounds. Well, I was going up 3 times a week, 2.5 pounds. So I had these 1.25 pound plates, and I just go up 2.5 pounds. And you can't tell the difference, okay? You cannot convince me that you can tell the difference between going up between 347.5 and 350. Okay, it's the same thing. All right. So if I recover from the workout, it's going to be fine. And I just kept adding, and I got up to what 437.5 for 5x5. All right, I jumped way up, and my raw bench jumped way up. But I was on that routine for 9 months straight. I just figured, as long as I'm getting stronger, why stop? Just keep. And I didn't worry about how much I could max. I just all I wanted to do was develop my work capacity for 5x5, and I knew that if I did that, that would lead to a bigger bench. But if I tested my bench early, it might hurt my progress in the 5x5, and uh, I would stall out prematurely. And that's what happened, and I made gains forever with it. And now I can tell you right now, 5x5 is about better than every bench routine I've ever seen out there. And if I was to do it, well, what I ended up doing was I went heavy on Monday, and then 80% of what I did on Monday, I did on Wednesday for 5x5, so it was a lighter day. And then on Friday, I would go up 2.5 pounds from Monday's workout. And then the following Monday I just keep going up. I just keep going. That's all I can. Then if you miss a rep, then there's a way to tweaking it a little bit to finish it out and not go, because at that point in time you're pushing weights slow, and you have to be careful because you're going to overtrain so quickly. You're going to fry that nervous system. So you have to be careful, but you want to reap the rewards at the same time of all that hard work that you've invested in it. So it's a little tricky. I had with my routine, because of what Louis Simmons says. He told me, he said you should train so you can compete with a 2 week notice. All right, that's huge. All right, so meaning this, you can't. I don't care where stage of training you're in. All right, you cannot be so fatigued that you can't go and say, "Oh, I got a contest in 2 weeks," and go for it. And that doesn't mean that you're in max effort technique. Okay, but what I know is this: going back to the whole bodybuilding, people think that you need to go through a base building stage or bodybuilding stage. No, you don't. Okay, that size will come from your eating and the work capacity development. Okay, again, I'm going to talk about work capacity, but it just comes from proper eating habits and developing your work capacity and being patient. If you go and make it too quick, it's not gonna. It doesn't usually. It leads to an injury usually. So you got to be
Yeah.
careful, particularly lower body. But
Yeah. And during that period of those 5x5s for your bench that ended up exploding your raw bench, what if any role did bands or chains play in that factor?
absolutely none. Yeah, yeah. Now, let me tell you this. My mentor, the one that I keep mentioning, Dave Williams, is the one who introduced bands to Louis. Yeah, yeah. Have you heard of weight releases?
Yep, yeah, the
Yeah.
old Russian,
He,
yeah.
yep, he invented those for yeah, yeah. Yeah, originally they did come from Russia, okay?
Yeah.
But they used them for cleans, and they would hook them to each side, stand up with the weight, stand up, hook to each side, come down, and then just before the weight would come off, touch the floor, the weight releases would come off, boom, and they'd go into their cleaner snatch. Yeah, yeah. And my mentor went, darn, those would be great for benching and squatting.
Yeah. Absolutely. I didn't even think
So
about that.
yeah, so he went and changed it all up. He wrote he got his master's degree, in his doctoral his thesis was on eccentric training. So he was so smart. Oh my gosh, he was so smart. He's so this triphasic training that's so popular the last few years, and we were doing that in the 80s. Okay, we would do a cable crossover, and we had this 6'9" offensive lineman who literally did not know how to jump. He couldn't get his feet off the ground. He's just too tall, awkward. So we have him grab the cable crossover, hold it on his chest, and just had him practice jumping, just to learn the mechanics of jumping. But it ended up, well, we ended up backfiring on us because before the transfer portal, he thought, well, shoot, you guys made me big and strong. Now I'm going to go play for someone else.
Yeah. Yeah. Thanks for giving me the antidote. I'm gonna go use it on another team now.
Yeah. Yeah, but yeah. So I had him, but yeah, no, bands and chains. Okay, let me help you make sure you understand. Uh, Bands and chains are for uh overloading portions of the movement that you normally can't overload, or to induce acceleration. All right, and you have to be careful. Also, I don't believe in using bands that allow you to handle weight exceptionally higher than your real wet max is, because I don't think it carries at all. It's just an ego thing. Um, and I don't like bands with the shirt. I really don't like them. I love them. Well, I do love them. They're fun. But the problem is that the band takes so much stabilization out of the shirt that you get twice as much out of the band as you did the raw bench when you use the bands. Right? And I said, no, I didn't like it. It gave me too much false illusion. And the same thing with boards. I didn't like boards. I thought boards were more of a handicap to me. But I needed to know my range of motion. So what I did was I had foam cut, real soft foam, cut in 3, 2, 1 inch, and half inch. So what you do is you lay the foam on my chest. I couldn't feel it, and I tried like my first warm up would be like 925 or whatever, and I just try to see if I could feel. Honestly, felt like I could barely bend my arms, and I use a 3 inch piece of foam and I bring it down and I pushed it up, and I remember going, oh man, I wasn't even close, and they were, yeah, coach, you were a half inch in. I went a half inch into it. I'm like, no way. And that made me feel good. But, you get in the habit of bringing that bar down, searching for that board. And even if you practice, I had a half inch board made just for practicing the full range of motion. It still messed me up. So I'm not a fan of boards at all. So
I think that's really interesting. You said something about giving a kind of a false sense of security with the bands because a lot of people think, well, it's X number at the top, so that means I can take it full ROM, no problem.
no.
It is a
No.
common misconception I've seen.
Yeah, no. It's just, if we want to get silly, I got a green screen I can put behind my bench and a bunch of green bands, hook it on there, and then you'll never see them, and I'll just sit there and float around 1,500 pounds and make it look like I can do something. But I mean,
Yeah.
people, people have some crazy ideas out there, man. And
Yeah.
you go, especially when you go to public gyms, and you just go, what?
Yeah.
Yeah. And
Yeah.
I remember I had a training partner, and first time he trained with me, he was trying to impress me. And I had just finished doing a set. And, I'm not Mr. Cardio at the time, and I'm huffing and puffing. And he's trying to tell me something about what somebody else on the internet thought was thinking. And stopped, and I said, just stop. I said, you, you just don't realize how stupid you sound right now. I said, I don't want to hear it. But it's like you get these kids who would go and sit there and try to tell you, oh coach, why can't we do some of these things or this thing? And then I'd laugh and I go, you know where they got that from? I says, let me tell you the history of that exercise and where that came from. Oh coach,
Yeah.
we had no idea. I'm like, yeah, I've been around for a long time. I
Yeah.
said,
Yep. Yeah, and if I'm not mistaken too, you have worked with a few NFL teams as well.
yeah, I do currently. Yeah,
So
that's what I
tell
do.
me tell me what that's like at the pro level.
Oh, you know what? I used to find it boring when I was with the Seahawks, uh, because I couldn't develop anybody. Okay, uh, it's like the kids at Liberty wanted me to put them on the Seahawk workout. And I'm like, you don't play a Seahawk season. So I don't see Seahawk players in here. I don't see a Seahawk weight room. I don't see a Seahawk strength coaches. And so, no, we're not doing the Seahawk workout, okay? Uh, in the NFL, it's, okay, I try to explain to people like this. If you're a college football player and you play 17 to 20 games, all right, in your career, you had a good career. Okay? That's a good college career, but it's spread out over 2-3 years. In the NFL, you're going to play 17 to 20 games in one season. And every day is going to be the most competitive practices you've ever had. So when the season's over, it's not like you just got done playing college or high school football. People go, boy, I bet those guys get after it in the off season. No, there's not much left of them because they get paid. They only get paid per game, okay, first of all. All right. So if you don't get activated, you don't get paid. All right. So people think that all these guys in the NFL make lots and lots and lots of money. They don't. There's some guys who were like pre-med and realize I can't live off of this money. I mean, they got free agent money. They got paid to work out. They got paid to practice. But they lived there, but their families lived in a whole nother city, and they had the car rentals and all the car payments, all that stuff. And they just couldn't afford to continue to play in the NFL, So it's a tough road.
Yeah. Yeah. And what was that? What was the difference like working with the pro athletes versus the college athletes?
Okay, this is the best way to explain this. Okay, the pro athletes would tell their families that they're not going to practice. They're not going to go work out. They told them, daddy's going to work. All right. They're going to go do their job. And with college football players, they are so entitled. They think that, especially at the FCS level, and they think they're God's gift to the world of football. And you're just like, man, I'm going to puke if I got to be around guys like you any much longer. I had a player tell me one time, I'll be the greatest player you ever coached. I said, well, I don't think so. What? He's like, why you got to be like that? And I'm like, well, for one, I've coached 10 guys in the NFL Hall of Fame, including Jerry Rice. I says, you going to be better than Jerry Rice? Well, I didn't know that. And I says, yeah, you just keep running your mouth and not doing what I tell you to do. And yet here I am. I'm the one who helped send them guys to the Hall of Fame. And you gonna treat me like I don't know what I'm doing. You won't do what I tell you to do. Oh, I didn't know. But you know what? Right now I go around and what's really cool is this. The NFL, the more I tell people, the more elite the athlete, the more they appreciate and understand what I accomplished in the bench press. And the NFL guys treat me like gold. I mean, it's wonderful. I really enjoy being around them. They're very humble, hardworking. They're responsible. Uh, Most of the time, like people ask me, they say Jerry Rice on TV, and they say, is he really that nice? I said, no, he's actually nicer. he's a, he's a really, really, really great guy. And I said, one of the things people need, they hear these bad stories about some of these guys who make mistakes or they're just bad guys. And they think that all NFL football players are that way. But the fact of the matter is, so many of those players are overachievers, guys that they didn't get there just because of talent. Or now they are talented. Holy smoke. I I went bowling, okay, with the team. I thought they went bowling on Friday and golf on Saturday. And so they were like, Coach, you going to go bowling with us? I said, yeah, I can bowl. I'm not good, but I can bowl at 160, when I'm on a roll. I thought that would be okay. Oh my gosh. I got humiliated, okay? I mean, I'm on the team and I got this 6'9" offensive guard who has got the prettiest bowling technique in the world, and he's coaching me on how to bowl. My other teammate is Rodney, who is our punter, and he goes, Coach, check this out. and goes and throws from between his legs, sing, and throws a strike. I'm like, how'd you do that? And he goes, watch this one, coach, from behind the back, and throws a strike. And I'm looking for video cameras. I'm like, you guys are punking me. You're setting me up, aren't you? No. And I realized, oh my gosh, these cats are gifted. They're not just strong. They're not just fast. They're not just athletic. They're very, very special. We had one offensive lineman mad because he didn't bowl 300. I'm like, 300? Dude, I've never met anybody bowl the 300,
Yeah. Seriously.
And so you realize that they're very competitive. Oh, yeah, that's the thing. In the weight room, $200 was bet every single day on something. I bet you can't do 30 pull-ups. Oh, yeah, I bet you $200 I can. I didn't know he could do 30 pull-ups, but for $200 he would.
Yeah.
But
That's awesome.
they love to compete. And so when you have a competitive style of lifting in the off season, all right, and you have competitive guys, that want to compete, oh my gosh, it's a match made in heaven. Now, if you go to a program, they don't like to compete. They're scared of competing. They're scared of failing. It's like pulling teeth, man. It's like,
Yeah.
yeah, it's hard. It's hard.
Yeah. Yeah. And tell me a little bit about coaching Jerry Rice, because that's crazy. One of the greatest receivers of all time. Tell me a little bit about your experience with him.
I'll tell you, we had a Monday night game against the Cowboys, and our general manager came up to me. And for some reason, our general manager decided that I was his best friend. I don't know why, but it was great for me. I mean, it made Coach Holgram mad, but I loved having him as a close friend. But he told me, he said, Bill, he says, watch as you stretch these players out. Watch Jerry get ready. He says, his attention to detail is amazing, and he's Mr. Monday Night. And boy, I'll tell you what, I was sitting there watching. He, I thought he had a little pair of like little league shoulder pads on top of his locker, and I thought, oh, that's so cute that he has these little tiny. I mean, their shoulder pads were only like this big. They were so cute little thing, and I thought, man, that's really neat that he saved those. And just to remember, nope, he put those on, man. He's slow. He was so slow. He couldn't. I bet he could run a 4.8 maybe his last year with us, but he knew how to do it. He knew how to run, and he was a great leader, and he was just quite a gentleman to coach and work with. Stretching him out, he loved my stretching routine, and it was like, I swear to you, it was like stretching a wet noodle. I have never seen anybody with absolutely no resistance at all to stretching.
That's awesome.
Yeah, but you know what? After the last game, I knew I was leaving. And so, I told everybody I was going to be going. And I said, Jerry was hanging out in my office, and I went, Jerry, just wait here for 1 second. So I ran into the equipment room, and I said, hey, by any chance you guys have a game ball from last night's game? It's my last game. And they went, oh, yeah, sure, Bill, we'll get you a game ball. Here's a game ball. And I marched that thing in. I said, hey, Jerry, would you sign this for me? Absolutely. So he signed it, and we got a picture together. And it's sitting right over here in my gun safe. But it's, to the best of my knowledge, it's the only known autographed football from Jerry Rice's last game. Yeah.
That's incredible.
Yeah, I've been blessed. No question. Just
Yeah.
you get to hang around these guys, these world-class people who overachieve, and you just feel like all of a sudden you're like, I'm not as abnormal as I thought I was.
Yeah.
You start to feel like this is normal. But then what happens is you spend all day after day in that environment, and then you go be with like normal people, and you're like, oh, wait a minute.
Yep.
That's not so normal.
Yeah. Now,
Uh,
for me, I've had some throughout powerlifting, I've had some hurdles myself. In the bench press, particularly, I noticed early on when I went, 135, 225, 315, I noticed that barrier to entry, anything above 405, like it took me longer to get from 375 to 410 on the bench press than it did 225 to 315. It was crazy. It just kept getting harder. I have a friend. He hits 135, but he wants to get his bench press up to 225. His max is about 170, not genetically gifted whatsoever at all.
Uh-huh.
What
Uh-huh.
would you recommend for someone like that that's struggling with the bench press to get it up there?
Simple. Bench 3 times a week, 5 by 5. All right. And do pull-ups between 3 to 6 sets of six, uh, with weight and without weight, very on for like 4 days a week. Your pull-ups and one-arm rows for sixes will develop your bench press more than any pressing exercise that you could ever.
I like
So
that too,
there's
because you see, Franco Colombo used a lot of weighted pull-ups, and he had he was crazy strong.
yeah, yeah, yeah. I love that. I love that you bring that history. Yeah. But yes, what happened with me was this. Uh, Anthony Clark. Do you remember Anthony Clark? The
Love
name
Anthony
Anthony
Clark.
Clark.
I have like 4 magazines, 3 or 4 magazines over here, Powerlifting USA, with him on the cover. I have an article on
Yes.
my website about him. I love Anthony Clark.
Okay. He was a great guy. Okay. And I went and I spent 4 days with him at a national strength coaches conference. Okay. And I'm looking at him and I'm going, I'm like trying to figure out why can he bench so much more. And then 2 weeks later, I go to the national championships, drug free nationals in Chicago. And Mark Philippi comes up to me. He says, "Hey, Bill, do you got a coach?" I said, "No." He goes, "Would you like Eddie to coach you?" And I went, "Who's Eddie?" And he goes, "Oh, I'm sorry, Eddie Cohn." I said, "You're lying." I said, "Hey, no way he wants to coach me. He don't even know who I am." He goes, "Oh, yeah, he knows who you are." I mean, this is in the 90s, okay? I was nobody. He goes, "Oh, yeah, he loves the sport. He follows it and knows all about you. He would love to help you out." And I says, "You really think he'd help me?" And he goes, "Oh, yeah, he's a great coach." Holy smokes, he was amazing. All right. Um, Chewed the judges out. My squat, my second attempt was low enough and they didn't pass it. My third attempt was not low enough and they passed it because he, he just chewed them judges out, man. But anyway, after spending so much time with him and Anthony Clark, I realized, I said, man, I've seen guys with big benches that have big chests, a little chest, little shoulders, little arms, but every one of them had a big back. Every one of them. And I said, my mentor had been telling me for a long time at the University of Washington, Rick Hughley, that I needed to start doing more pull-ups. And I said, fine, I'll start doing pull-ups. And I started doing pull-ups, and the better I got at pull-ups, the more my bench went up. I mean, just hand in hand. And when I got to where, because of a bone spur in my right shoulder, I couldn't do pull-ups anymore, my raw bench took a plummet. It just dropped, and I couldn't find anything to replace it for a long, long, long time, because it was just so bad. But I finally found a couple exercises that help develop my back, because that's where my bench comes from. My back is big, still big, even though I've lost weight. But it was such a foundation of where my bench came from. And I look at guys immediately and go, you got to build your upper back. You develop your bench to its potential. The key is that is there's okay. I jokingly say there's 3 types of strength training now. Okay, there's strength training to exhibit maximum strength, and that's what the max effort stuff does. There's strength training to develop a strength potential, and like your 5 by 5. And I spent probably about 85% of my training on developing my strength potential. And then I jokingly say the last method is strength training to look like you're strong, but you're not, and that's what I do now. But what guys do, and people love the max. So people have a certain potential, okay, and then they try to figure out how to get to that potential, and they go, "Oh, That method really, really worked for me. I got really, really strong, and they try to do it again and again, expecting the same results, and they don't. They can't figure out why. Well, because you developed it to its potential. You develop it to its weakest component. So what you have to do is you have to reevaluate what it had to redevelop some potential, and that's where we want to go into bodybuilding, but we can't. Okay, that's not what you want to do, and uh, uh, just increase your work capacity and work mode so that you can go and have your bench press go back up again, and stop doing the exercises for a little while to exhibit max strength, and just spend your time developing a base. And again, not bodybuilding, because bodybuilding will screw up how the motor pass. Be patient. Ride that wave, man. Ride that wave as long as you can. Duncan was one of them. I told him, I said, don't you dare go and do a heavy single. Don't you dare do a heavy single. I said, when you do, it's over. And he goes, no, coach, no, coach. Man, I knew he was close. And I said, he had to do 480 or 485 for a single. And I get a text message. I know you told me not to do this, but coach, I blew up 485 and I had to get 500. And I said, well, congratulations. That's awesome. I said, now we're done and we're going to start all over again. And he goes, no. And I said, yeah, we're done. And to this day, he'll tell you, Bill, he was right. We're done. And it took him forever to get back. And the whole time I'm thinking, yeah, I'm going to get him to 525, 535, I think, for sure, And he pulled the trigger early. Well, that's, it's over,
Yep.
It takes a
Yep.
while to rebuild that stage, So
Yeah.
that's
Absolutely.
why I think most guys, that's why so many guys struggle, is they don't develop the potential along with a 15% emphasis on exhibiting it. Okay. It's not, it doesn't always, there's a time where you can do both. There's a time where you can do the 5x5, but I don't never found to be all that successful, except for if I was working with an individual who absolutely was very poor at their ability to exhibit their max strength. And then, it's like Louis and I got in a big debate. He said, you can't do more than 3 reps on a dynamic day. And I said, that's not true. I said, I know, and I know. I have the research, and the research says 6. And he goes, nope, can't do it. And I said, all right, visualize this. I'm a volleyball player who has not even come close to reaching their potential. And this is their bench max. And I know they're really not achieving what they're capable of. So when I put them at 75, 65%, it's way stupid light. And the bar does not slow down on reps 4, 5, or 6. Okay, so you technically can do higher reps for dynamic. This thing of only doing 6 sets of 12, 6 sets of 2, 12 sets of 2 is really, it's not true. But it depends on the individual and their work experience capacity. So
yeah. And I was going to ask about that. I was going to ask about the influence that Louis Simmons and Westside had on your career in your training style.
Oh yeah. I subscribed to Powerlifting USA, and I mean, every month I got that thing. I was just like gold. It was like the only research we could get. I remember talking to Mike Bridges, and I said, yeah, Mike. I said, I remember studying that bench routine you put in Powerlifting USA. And he goes, you read that? And I went, and he goes, and I said to him, he would do one thing very, very unusual. On his third warm up set, the 315, he would do it for 3 sets of 3. And I asked him, I said, why did you do it? He goes, because I knew that was really my warm up set. Okay. That was going to get my nervous system fired up. He goes, the ones before that was just for range of motion, and everything else is going to be just for adapting to the nervous system. And he says, and so what I did is I started using that technique also. And if I had a day where I'm like, oh, I feel horrible. I did as many as 12 sets of 2 with the weight, and finally went, oh man, I'm feeling good, and ended up when I had a great workout. But it took me 12 sets of 2 to get it to where it was, until I was more feeling great. But the bar just was not. If I'd have to make sure it got to where it was reacting really fast off my chest, and then I'm like, okay, I'm good to go. But I never I never allowed myself to find an excuse to not get the workout in. And that's another big misconception people have, is they think they deserve some time off, especially after a meet. No, you never miss a workout, ever, ever. Are you go on vacation? The only time I would suggest not is like when I went on a cruise, is I would find some other way to lift besides the machines, okay? They'll screw you up big time. I lost 80 pounds on my bench on a cruise lifting on the machines, and it took me about 2 years to get it back. But yeah, these people who sit there and say, "Oh, I love training on machines." I'm like, "Oh, okay." You know, glad it's you,
Yeah.
not me. There's a whole different. I mean, like they had this dip machine, and the first day I got on there, I couldn't do half the stack, and I'm like, "Oh my gosh, I'm pathetic at this thing." 3 days later, I got the whole stack on there. Bam, 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 bam. I'm just crushing it, and I'm like, "Yeah, this is easy now." But I had to learn how to contract it with that stimulus. Once I got it down, well, then I changed the way the muscle contracts. Uh, when we talk about training, if I, especially if I, have a knowledge of my way I train football players, you're going to go, "Oh my gosh, he's going to train me. I'm not in shape for it. He's going to kill me. I'm going to puke everywhere." But what if I said I'm going to train your dog? Am I going to make your dog sit, stand till it pukes? No, I'm going to try to train it to move in behavior patterns. Okay, right? Right? I'm going to teach you how to do that. The same thing when we try to teach our athletes how to train, is we're trying to teach them how to move in behavior patterns, movements, so that they can become a better athlete. It's not about killing them, okay? And you could change. Like people go and try to say, certain tech, my elbows come out. What do I do to pull my elbows in on the bench press? Make your back stronger. Your body's going to find its the strongest groove, okay? And what you're doing is you're showing your weaknesses, and we know that you're weak. You A lot of times you can't pull your elbows in because you're just back's not strong enough. And as you patiently wait and develop, all of a sudden you'll correct that because of developing the strength and doing it with good technique. As an athlete, if you practice doing lifts with bad technique, it's not going to transfer to the football field. It won't make
Yeah.
you a better athlete. So
Yeah.
you got your ego satisfied in the weight room. Don't mean you're going to win games.
Yep.
So
Yep. Absolutely. And when you were doing your 5x5s on the bench, were you using any other grips like reverse grip, close grip, anything like that? Any other variations in bars, or was it just
on my light day, yes.
okay?
On my light day, I would use 3 different grips, and I would go and I kept it really simple. Again, I didn't want to get too far away from any variation that I was going to use. So I would have my strongest grip, 2 fingers in, my medium grip, 4 fingers in, my narrow grip. It doesn't seem significant, but it's what I wanted. I don't want it to be quite significant. I want it to be uh, the best. The number one assistant exercise for the bench press is narrow grip bench because it's so close to simulating the real thing. Other than probably your best base building exercises for the bench press are pull-ups and weighted dips. I personally feel, you know,
Yep.
so
Absolutely. I think George Halbert used a lot of close grip as well, if I'm not mistaken, because he was such a chest dominant bencher. I remember seeing a video of him talking about how he had to really learn how to use his triceps in the bench press.
yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. So yeah, I I just took me forever to develop a bench press. I sucked at it for such a long time, and
Yeah.
I remember see oh my gosh, I can't remember his name. He wrote the book on the biomechanics of the bench press, and I was really intimidated to meet him. And he said, I mean, this back when I was benching in the mid threes. And he said to me, he said, "Well, what do you think of my book?" I said, "Sir, I have no basis to have anything to say anything to you, a man with a PhD who works with world-class athletes." I said, "I'm not about to say anything about it because either good or bad, I don't have anything to stand on." He goes, "No, no, no, no. I'd like to hear." And I said, "Well, to be honest with you, there's some things I did disagree with." And I said, "Let me explain to you what I believe in and how I did." And he goes, well, that's really interesting. He goes, nobody's explained it to me like that. And I thought, what a nice man, just, I was a young guy, young coach, and thought, he's just being friendly, nice guy,
Yeah.
helping me out. The next day, this is at the National Strength Coaches Conference. He's got a booth, and he's got about 30 coaches standing in front of his booth, and he's telling them about this new bench technique. And I thought, oh, he's just talking about his book, And he goes, yeah, this guy met revolutionized the bench technique. He says, well, in fact, there he is, right there. And I thought, oh my gosh, my lucky day. I'm standing back here right by him. But it was me. But what happened was that gave me confidence, okay? Of saying, wait a minute, maybe I do know something, okay? And I sat there and I thought to myself, I said, you know what? You're a smart guy. My mentor, he encouraged me. And I went, maybe it's time to take and find a drug-free approach to the bench press. And like I talked to Mike Bridges, he said, Bill, that's not the workout we did. He says, yes, I did the 3x3, but he said we didn't do all that stuff. He goes, I wasn't about to put all my good workouts out there for $250. No way, and that's what they would pay him to do that. And I said, that's what I always wondered. I thought, there's no way you guys do something as stupid as some of the stuff that was wrote down. He goes, yeah. so
That's
that's why when
awesome.
people go and say, I want to do so-and-so's workout, I'm just like, you don't know that's really what you're getting. You don't know that. You don't even know if you're ready for that. You don't know if that fits you. Okay? So, yeah. So I think that designing programs is so key in what we do. Um, the Russian coach who taught us how to design the program said that it would take him 40 hours to write up a 4-week routine. I turned to the guy next to him. I said, what's he do the other 38 hours? I mean, come on. You know? No way. And he says, when he finished the 3-day seminar, I said, there's no way you could do that in 40 hours. No way. No way. And I would give my interns an assignment. They had to write up just a bench routine. All right? 4-week bench routine. And it took them 40 to 50 hours just to do that. It's so complicated. When you start looking at all the numbers and the cross-reference numbers, it's mind-blowing.
Yeah.
But when you put it together, it's unbelievable. It's unbelievable how good it works,
Yeah.
So it's worth, as a coach, yes, it's a lot of hard work on my part. But you know what? That's what you're paying me for. And even if you're not paying me, it's what I'm responsible to do. So I'm going to do it because it's the right thing to do. It's like when I was at the left the University of Washington, and I was a couple of years ago, I heard that, they hired a women's basketball strength coach, and I heard how much they're paying him. And I'm like, are you kidding me? And my wife just laughed. She goes, you would have done it for free, so don't say anything.
Yeah.
You're right. I would have.
Yeah.
I loved it. I loved those athletes. I loved working with them. That was such a privilege to get to coach them.
Yeah.
And being from, I was born and raised in Lakewood, Parkland, Spanaway, and all that.
Yep.
It was home for me. It was a chance to come back home, be at the University of Washington, which I dreamed of, uh, and go into the coaching at the Seattle Seahawks. I mean, come on, what guy wouldn't dream make that happen?
Yeah.
I'm extremely
Yeah.
thankful for those opportunities and those people I got to work with and meet. So it was great.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah, and it's a testament to your will and character to be able to work hard and grind through it, to come up from nothing and essentially go on to set world records, have a giant powerlifting career, and then an illustrious strength and conditioning coach career. I mean, you have had a multitude of success both on and off the platform, and I think that speaks to your mindset more than anything
Oh,
else.
thank you. Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you. It's I've had a sleep disorder for about over 5 years now. And we believe that a lot of it had to do with the fact that I was so stimulated as a coach, and I was like on the edge. I mean, my thumb was on the pulse of that team. And then on top of that, you're training trying to compete yourself, pushing that limit. And all of a sudden that was all taken away from me. I don't have that anymore. And it's hard for me to unwind at night. And I'm just starting to learn how after 5 years. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, awesome. Well, Bill, thank you so much for your time. I really appreciate it. You're a
Yeah.
legend, a Washington legend, nonetheless, which is extra cool for me. Born and raised in Tacoma.
Yeah.
So it's just it's such an honor to get to talk to someone with your level of knowledge and accomplishment. So I really appreciate your time. If you're ever in Washington, please definitely contact me. We met very briefly a couple years ago, but I was kind of in a rush off to work, so I didn't get to talk to you as much as I definitely wanted to. So,
Yeah. Yeah. Well, my mom lives right out there in Roy. So,
oh,
yeah.
perfect. Right
Yeah.
on.
So, yeah. So I'll be coming out. I come out there once in a while to go visit her. So,
Yeah.
yeah.
And why don't you plug some of your social media where people can kind of follow your journey and get a hold of
Oh,
you?
yeah, yeah. I don't have a ton, but I do put it out there, especially on Instagram. I'm master underscore strength underscore. I think that's something like that. So, but I put out stuff, and when I go to visit different schools and stuff like that, and I'm blessed, man. I love my job. I love Sorinex. I mean, I cannot believe they pay me to do what I do. I love to hunt and fish. I take coaches hunting and fishing, and I go visit them in the weight room and hang out with them. I don't have to sell anything. Um, just build relationships, and it's great, man. And the teams welcome me in now, and it's a wonderful situation. So, and the teams I work with have been doing pretty darn good too. So,
Yeah, that helps.
yeah.
Awesome. Well,
uh,
thanks for chatting with me, Bill. I really appreciate it.
all right, buddy. You take
All right,
care.
man. You too.
Uh,